So, for a while, I struggled with whether or not to make this video.
All we can do is lean towards the good.
This notion of identity behind the surface display of duality, identity behind it all of these are manifestations of the one.
The church was threatened by this because how can you have a church if everyone's libido is her own God?
Why not? Why can't the church handle that? If you can sanctify a marriage that has been arranged, why can't you sanctify a marriage where two people have joined each other?
I have a personal affinity for Joseph Campbell. Anyone who follows me on Twitter or has watched my videos or has conversed with me about Star Wars in any way knows this. I found Campbell's works at a time in my life when I was looking for something that wasn't film criticism. I wanted to understand story and understand why certain things resonated with me and others didn't. And I was tired of all the argumentative criticism, which so obviously disregarded women and minority viewership and opinion. So of course, when I saw The Last Jedi, I thought, so this is mythical. And I immediately dug into Campbell trying to figure out what that meant. I read plenty of critical pieces on his works as well, not surprising since he was a white man born on the East Coast of the US in 1904. I wasn't expecting anything revolutionary from his work, and honestly, it sort of grew on me as I became more familiar with his lectures. Also not surprising, most discourse on Campbell happens in white male circles. Women aren't usually talking about him unless you're Rory or Paris, that is.
God, I love this. I've seen it 4 times. 5. Seriously?
It was almost 6, but my mom tried to be funny one day and hid it.
I thought you and your mom got along.
Even we have our dark periods.
Other groups avoid him entirely, or when they do speak of him, they disregard his work in favor of less reductionist approaches to myth, psychology, anthropology, philosophy, or wait. Maybe I should clarify what Campbell's work actually was, because it certainly was not all of these things. And in criticizing his work, I think this is the trap that a lot of people fall into. Campbell was a literature professor, a perpetual student of story. He was most interested in finding similarities between all types of folklore from various cultures all over the world. When a lot of people first come across his work, they may read The Hero with 1,000 Faces, although I'm not really sure why. Though it remains his most popular work and the work in which he proposed the now widely templated hero's journey, it's not what he was most known for outside of, well, Star Wars. Campbell was an amazing lecturer. He had an amazing ability to weave in a personality and a personal journey when he recounted folk tales or stories he held dear. He encouraged people to read stories outside of their own experiences and perspectives, since it changed his life so significantly. He lived his own philosophy so effortlessly and so happily, it's no wonder people get so easily taken in by it. But funny enough, he didn't tell anyone he had it all figured out. Instead, he said, you should find your own truth for yourself, and what that is will be completely different from my truth.
It must come from you, not from the machine, and not from the government that's teaching you, or not even from the clergy. It has to come from one's own inside. And the minute
a lot of people who are into Campbell won't really admit this, but most of his work actually falls under the self-help section, not psychology or cultural studies. Ugh. In his time, he would have said he was a student of literature and myth, but what he was contributing on the surface level was simply a retelling of these myths from his own perspective. When you dig deeper into it, you may find questions to ask yourself that may begin as studies of myth or psychology or culture or philosophy, but may end up as a journey of self-discovery. And that's awesome. There's no reason to discount it because there's no definitive answers in it. In fact, no definitive answers is a part of the perspective.
This is difficult stuff.
Campbell wrote a journal entry in 1932 where he said, I am filled with an excruciating sense of never having gotten anywhere. But when I sit down and try to discover where it is I want to get, I'm at a loss. The thought of growing into a professor gives me the creeps. A lifetime being spent trying to kid myself and my pupils into believing that the thing we are looking for is in books. I don't know where it is, but I feel just now pretty sure that it isn't in books. It isn't in travel. It isn't in California. It isn't in New York. Where is it? And what is it, after all? This was during the time he was trying to pin down exactly what he wanted to do for his career, and the answers he found were not what he originally sought. What he originally wanted was to study American Indian cultural anthropology. He goes on to say, "A science would buckle me down and would probably yield no more important fruit than literature may yield me. If I want to justify my existence and continue to be obsessed with the notion that I've got to do something for humanity, well, teaching ought to quell that obsession. And if I can ever get around to an intelligent view of matters, intelligent criticism of contemporary values ought to be useful to the world." This gets back again to Krishna's dictum: the best way to help mankind is through the perfection of yourself. Now, I'm not so sure that intelligent criticism of contemporary values is a phrase Campbell would have uttered in his later years. He actually found some footing in more progressive values later in his life. But it is interesting that he himself was confused at what he was contributing. I would say that his work definitely falls in a more artistic realm than a scientific one. He even said later in his life that his work was about giving people the key to the realm of the muses, meaning he didn't have all the answers, but maybe he could help you to find a way to your own. It's true that we all find validation in others' opinions of our work. Campbell received praise for his work on the hero's journey. People found immense value in it. Therefore, he continued on that path. It wasn't until 17 years later, after this journal entry, that Campbell actually wrote his first book on his own, and that book was The Hero with 1,000 Faces. So, see what I'm getting at here? He wrote 26 more solo works following The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Not to mention the hours of lectures that he's recorded. Now, I'm not saying you can't criticize Campbell if you've only read The Hero with 1,000 Faces. Hell, I still haven't gotten through my copy. But I am saying that to discredit him based on that work alone makes no sense to me, since it was only at the beginning of his study and really brought mythology into the mind of the American subconscious. We do look at story differently now, for better or worse. But generally, I do think that using a lens for story, any lens at all, can be a productive exercise. At least more productive than saying a character is problematic, therefore bad, or counting all the plot holes in a blockbuster, or bringing in weirdly woke takes on something as classic as Hades and Persephone. So back to what Campbell was all about and why I find so much joy in his works. I have this weird ongoing theory that everyone is connected. I believe this on a fundamental level, so understand that about me. It's at the base of my essential belief framework. I'm not sure how we are all connected, whether it's string theory or through a more abstract idea of Kabbalah where we all have a piece of God inside of us. I don't know. All I know is that this idea in its most basic understanding resonates with me on a spiritual level. So artists and writers who have similar ideas, I tend to see that connection between them and I in a way. In other words, I am very sensitive. Anyway, writers such as Murdock, Robert Bly, I tend to jive with them pretty well. Herman Hesse is another one I greatly enjoy. Maybe you can see the trap I've fallen into. It all stems from Carl Jung, who proposed this basic idea of a collective unconsciousness where we are all connected through either history or biology or both. And even though there are a lot of critics of Jungian thought, none of them are coming out to criticize the biggest boy band in the world for using Jung's map of the soul as a concept for exploring personal themes in music while also being able to relate that to their fans. Interesting. So, what am I trying to say? I think what I'm trying to say is I'm still new to these studies, and because of my sensitive nature, I tend to give time and credit where it's due. If you get frustrated by my lack of knowledge, please don't watch my videos. I don't have all the answers for myself, much less anyone else. And you know what? I don't ever expect to. Although I might be a bit of a Campbell snob, I get annoyed when people mix up Campbell and Vogler, for instance. I'm still very much a student of myth and story. I still need to read more. I need to read more women authors and authors of color and non-binary authors. I need some significant diversity in the perspectives I consume, and I know this. But it's going to take some time and some discipline because, let's face it, I'd rather watch a K-drama than read a nonfiction book. And when I sit down to analyze said K-drama, I'm probably going to take out the tools given to me by the authors that I have read and that I like. It helps me orient myself and brings purpose to why I consume the media I consume. To go back to that Campbell quote that interprets and paraphrases what he calls Krishna's dictum, the best way to help mankind is through the perfection of yourself. I can only attempt to aim for that lofty goal.
We love Bill Moyers.
Yes, we do love Bill Moyers, but we did come here for spring break, and I'm just wondering if we're not spring breaking the way you're supposed to spring break.
You're probably right.
I mean, if we're here, we should probably commit
Try to experience the entire event.
with other people outside this room.
Okay, let's do it. Let's commit.
Okay, starting now.
Starting now.
Tomorrow's fine too.
Absolutely.
God, his work-in-the-middle historical atlas of world mythology, his effort to bring under one roof the spiritual and intellectual wisdom of a lifetime.
Thanks everyone for watching this. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and don't forget to share it as well because that helps people find the channel. Thanks!